Hello and welcome to the Walking Kev. Today we're doing yet another budget wild camp video, and when we say budget we are talking real budget. This tent cost me $9.99 from Lidl a couple of years ago, so we're going to pitch it today, have a look around it and see if it's any good. So if you like budget wild camping stuff, you want to see some wild camping, all sorts of gear reviews, then this is the channel for you. So it takes 2 seconds to drop me a like and takes only a few more seconds to subscribe to the channel. So once you've done that, we'll get another look at this tent. The tent has a hydrostatic head of 2000 millimeters. It's single skin, weighs 1.5 kilograms, and you can see it packs down pretty small. So let's get it pitched and we'll have a look at it, see if it's any good. So not surprisingly, the poles are fiberglass. There are some guy ropes which I've not even bothered fitting, and there are some steel pegs. So you can get the weight down even more if you swap those out for some aluminium ones. So the poles come in many sections to keep the pack size down. So you might be able to see by the size of the tent, it's actually supposed to be a 2-man tent. So a 2-man tent, 1.5 kilos. It's that's some pretty impressive specs. So there we have it. That was a little bit tricky to pitch on the inside. There's like an A-frame of fiberglass poles, and they kind of go into 2 little corner pockets and connect at the top, and they're sort of tied up a couple of points along the pole to keep them against the front there. Once I got that done, obviously it was really easy to get the main pole across, and yeah, it was easy to pitch in the end, but just haven't done it for a long time. The guy lines aren't done it properly either, because I last pitched this quite a long time ago when I was drunk, so I just knotted the guidelines and just stuck them on. So yeah, it's actually a pretty nice looking little tent. We're pitched sort of head on into the wind at the moment because just wanted the right light for the camera. But it's actually a pretty sleek blade shape. So if you pitch the back into the wind, it would actually go over it quite nicely, and that's why there's 3 guy out points on the back, because you're expecting to have that taking the bulk of the wind. You're not going to want to pitch it head on where it's catching all the wind and it's going to go straight into the door and take off like a kite. But actually, for $9.99, I'm going to say this is a good value tent, because obviously for $9.99, what can you really get? So it was more expensive in Lidl originally. But it was in the sale bin at 30% off, so it was just the $9.99 which I paid for it. So probably not really going to find that many tents cheaper, even if you're looking used. You're going to get something absolutely battered for this sort of money. So yeah, it's a pretty sleek looking tent, and a tiny bit of breeze now, and it's obviously pretty firmly pegged down. And again, if we flip the direction around, it would probably sit quite nicely. So let's have a bit of a closer look at the interior space and see if it lives up to the idea that it's possibly a 2-man tent. So a nice little pyramid shape at the front, and interior just goes to cover the front door a little bit, and the door is just opens up that space, but you can see it's quite narrow and quite small, and it's got obviously a mesh behind it, so you can have the door open with just the mesh for better ventilation if it was going to be dry. So you can obviously clip the outside door back and just have the mesh panel there, and the tent should be quite nicely ventilated there, because the air is going to pour through the rear vents and out the front, or vice versa, depending on which way the wind is blowing. So you can clip the mesh out the way as well and see into the interior. So it's supposedly a 2-man tent. So let's get in and line it and see if that's remotely feasible. So could you get 2 people in this tent? Yeah, you could. Would you want to? I don't think you would. Being a single skin tent, with 2 people in it, it's going to get really wet inside with condensation. And by the time you've got 2 sleeping mats in here, especially if they've got any kind of height at all, you are going to be touching the sidewalls all night. You're going to get absolutely soaked. So no, I wouldn't say this is a 2-man tent, apart from the fact that, yeah, you can fit 2 people in here sort of lying down and stuff. But No, you're absolutely not going to want to. So you can see the two rear ventilation panels. They should offer some airflow through the tent. And there's a small pocket, and there's one on the other side opposite as well, so two small pockets. But at the end of the day, irrespective of whether you're in a £1,000 tent or a £9.99 tent, this is what it's all about. That view from inside the tent, just out into any patch of wildlife. And to be honest, I think you could happily spend the night in this tent where it's currently pitched. So you can just about sit up inside the tent as long as your head's right in the middle tallest part. So as a one-man tent, you can easily get your backpack in here, you can easily get changed, you can easily move around and do what you need to do. So yeah, as a one man, this is pretty solid, and 1.5 kilos is not weighing too much. And obviously the pack size is really small as well, just due to the lack of material. It's all polyester. It seems pretty decent. It's not very thin, which is why obviously for a single skin tent, it still carries quite a bit of weight, because obviously it's not the expensive sort of materials you would get if you were buying a ultralight like trekking pole tent or something like that. But no, it's a pretty solid little tent. I'm going to be intrigued to take it wild camping somewhere. Going to be careful with the weather and the pitch to make sure it doesn't completely break. Because again, for most people, you can get away with a tent that's not that great, not that strong, as long as you're pitching sensibly and not too high up, and you know the weather's going to be fairly stable. You wouldn't want to pitch this at too high a level, especially in exposed areas, even if the weather was quite benign, because you never know when you're at that kind of height how the weather can change. And that's why it's better to have a strong tent and not need it than have a rubbish tent and have the weather suddenly change in the middle of the night, and your poles are breaking and you end up in a spot of trouble. So we'll take this one out quite carefully, and we'll go somewhere where it's going to be safe to pitch, even if the weather does change a little bit. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with it, because I've slept in it once, and I remember it being really quite narrow. So it does look a lot bigger this time, and I think if I tweak the pitch a little bit and just pulled the sides out a bit more, it'd have a fraction more space in it as well. So there we have it, another little budget tent that we've had a look at. Obviously the cheapest tent I've done so far at £9.99, and quite obviously in terms of technical tent, quite obviously the worst. It's the only tent I've used that's got a fiberglass pole. It's the only single skin tent that I've used that isn't sort of a very, very lightweight trekking tent with sort of seal nylon and stuff. It's just a cheap polyester material. Obviously it's from Lidl, so it's one of those seasonal tents that you might see crop up occasionally, or something very similar to this. But for the price, £9.99, I think it's absolutely fantastic if you wanted to get out in the garden, have the kids play in it and stuff, and get used to being out in a tent. I think on a campsite, if you've got a sheltered spot and the weather's quite nice in the summer, you could happily take this out. And obviously I'm going to take it out for a wild camp somewhere where I know that it's not going to be too exposed, and where the weather forecast is really benign for a good couple of days, so that there's no chance of the weather coming in and the tent getting broken, because I'm very conscious that there's quite a long fiberglass pole that's sort of holding the whole tent together, and I wouldn't want to be out in it if that broke, especially if it was raining as well. But no, if this is your kind of content, then absolutely please drop me a like on the video, and please subscribe. It really helps the channel to have people liking the videos and subscribing. Huge thanks to people who subscribed so far. Got over 200 subscribers now, which is absolutely amazing. The channel's grown really well, really pleased with it. And I definitely think this is my thing now, in terms of I'm going to just try and find tents for less than £100 that are really good. So obviously this one's a bit of a sort of a bit of a wild card in terms of just how cheap it is. But if you look at some other videos, say the Van Gogh Summit, that's a really good tent I got for £25. That is a tent that's capable of summit pitching. It's got Van Gogh Powerlite aluminium poles. It's really strong when it's all guyed out. And one of them sold on eBay recently for £156. So that just shows just what a bargain I got with that. You'll also seen recently out in the Jack Wolfskin Gossamer one. That was 80 quid off of eBay, including postage. absolutely mint condition because it was used, but it didn't look like it had been used at all. You've got DAC press fit green poles of that tent. You've got a really low profile. You've got 10,000mm hydrostatic head on the top, on the bottom, 5,000 on the top. So you've got an extremely sturdy, weatherproof tent for 80 quid. And I would absolutely, from watching other videos, say that you could take that Jack Wolfskin pretty much anywhere and it would do you fine, just because of how low profile it is, and it's made of really good quality materials. It's nicely guyed out as well. So I'm going to keep watching eBay and Facebook Marketplace and other stuff and try and pick up more tents for less than £100 and just take them out, go wild camping and just show what's possible, because you know, it's no good just watching YouTubers who are out in really expensive tents all the time, because for the vast majority of people, that's not very realistic. Even if you could afford it to try, you know, it's still a massive commitment to make, especially if you don't know how much wild camping you'll be doing. So I'm going to stop rattling on about that, and I will catch you in the next video where I'm going to take out a really heavy OEX tent and try and go wild camping in it. So yeah, thanks for watching if you've made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one.